In 2025, disinformation stopped being a distant threat. Suddenly, every one of us could see and feel its impact. Good evening, my name is Maia Mazurkiewicz, and welcome to the Anatomy of Disinformation. This year's surge of influence operations transformed the public awareness of disinformation. It became a defining issue of 2025, and we were all affected. Poland's foreign minister recently talked about the tsunami of disinformation that Poland is facing. What were the main influence operations? And were their main objectives to weaken public support for Ukraine, undermine trust in NATO and the EU, and intensify domestic polarization? Let's talk about that with our guest.
Andrea Baronchelli, Professor of Complexity Science at City St. George's, University of London. He studies self-organization in decentralized socio-technical systems and in emerging networks of human and AI agents, with work on social norms, coordinating and polarization in online networks, information and misinformation diffusion, blockchain economies, and dark markets. His research has appeared in Nature, Science, PNAS, and Nature Human Behavior, with impact reflected in citations across more than 80 policy documents.
Andrea, welcome and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Talking about what happened in 2025, but also what may happen in 2026. And your research focuses on new technology mostly and how involved it is in disinformation. So what do you predict might be the biggest issue for us?
So the general premise is that predicting anything is very hard because the pace of innovation is so fast that already being on top of what's happening, it's not trivial. For sure, I guess it's no secret, AI is permeating everything more and more. And I think from the point of view of information space, we have the further development. We will see the further development of these autonomous agents acting on social media, to the point that nowadays I don't think it's correct anymore to say that we have the usual social media we used to know plus agents, but these agents are fundamentally transforming the social space itself.
And I think that many people are afraid of whose opinions they're reading. So basically most of the accounts we are seeing are the automated networks or part of them.
So it's very, very hard to establish where something is automated. That's the thing. The big change with LLMs occurred like 3 years ago, 2.5 years. 3 years is exactly that this new technology has mastered human language. And by doing so, and improving in this mastering, disentangling what's a bot from what's not a bot, it's becoming much more complicated. And I would say at the level of the single individual, basically it's already impossible. So that's the big problem. Hey, what can we do about this? The answer is, of course, very hard. We still don't know. Education remains a fundamental pillar, that is, informing the public that what they see online can now be contaminated or even produced by artificial intelligence. The issue with these bots is that, of course, they have a series of characteristics. They are infinitely passionate, for example. So they are maybe willing to steer your opinion or bring them in their direction by infinite interactions and seconding you and giving and telling you that you're right over and over again. If I may say a slogan that I see it's characterizing what we see is that platforms had identified discontent and hatred as a major vehicle of engagement. No? So what we have seen over the past decade is that in order to steer the opinion of people, was very effective to have polarization, to have confrontation. Now we have another layer, which is love. So these bots can simply read all of your posts and then come to you by saying, hey, you are exactly right in everything. And have you considered also this further element? And this is very problematic because it can be very effective. We have a series of studies that show how they can be very persuasive. And tuning the strategy of persuasion to the individual level. And also because this is very difficult to monitor. So we are facing this new challenge now.
And what is the way they interact with a human being, right? That is having the account.
So there might be several ways. So no, the way is language. That's exactly the thing. I always love to mention that there is one of the theory of the evolution of different languages that precisely says that we have developed, and groups are very quickly developing new languages, new jargon, because with language you can cheat. Because language is an extremely effective way to persuade and be persuaded. So in order to policy in group versus in out group, historically we have developed different languages so that I can say who's in my village and who's in the other village. These tools do that with language. And then what they do can be of very different flavors. For example, they can try and change your mind. This can be tricky, okay? But so they can try and steer small actions. For example, try and induce you to go or not go to vote. And you can imagine how a tailored attack, constituency by constituency, if manages to mobilize or not mobilize 2% of the voters, can have a dramatic influence on the outcome of the elections. Another thing is, which I study personally, and it's a major topic of my research, is the so-called theory of critical mass. So the theory of critical mass says that a minority is irrelevant up to the point in which it becomes dramatically influent. And this has been used and has appeared in many social movements. But now you realize that traditionally the big problem was how to build the critical mass. Okay, it's 10% can do miracles. How do we get from 0 to 10? Mobilizing this first initial movement was a problem. Now this can be faked, because these autonomous agents can actually be numerically at 10%, or at least give you the impression that this has been that there is a consensus in your bubble. And there is not. And we know that we are very prone to act based on this.
And Andrea, who is behind those networks? Because someone is steering them, teaching them, right?
Whoever, I mean, many parties, probably, many actors are behind this. And we have a series of considerations to be made. The first one is the barrier to orchestrate such an operation, especially if it's tailored, is dramatically lowered. So you don't need necessarily a state actor, okay? Small actors, tech savvy, can unleash this army of bots, of autonomous bots. And these bots can negotiate with one another, can be in contact, can orchestrate the attack themselves. So this is one point. The other point is, it's essentially this, the other point is more technical.
So you would say that, for example, a campaigner or a politician can use this bot and then interact with various people in his constituency?
Definitely. I mean, if you imagine a 50-50 constituency, you don't need many bots, apart from the fact that the cost of bots is low. But in any case, even from the point of view of visibility, you could do something which might be generally good, which is telling people to go and vote, but you only go and act on the people who you think will support you. And without revealing that, however, you're doing so. in order to get the vote. So you can try and seduce each one of them according to their beliefs. So, for example, one could say, okay, I mean, if you don't go, the other opponent is terrible and we win. But then someone else would say, oh, stop being lazy. You should be a better citizen, go and vote. And the tailoring of the strategy on the individual can be automated in the sense, again, these bots read all of the previous posts, kind of grasp the personality of the individual, and then act on that.
Andrea, I have last question to you, and a very short one. What is your wish for 2026 in terms of this work you're doing?
That's a big thing because I'm typically not monitoring. I would really hope for education. And I think that the education, let's put it, can I be grandiose in my dream? What we are seeing in all our democracies is an emphasis on STEM disciplines. And I think that's super important. I'm a physicist in a mathematics department, so nobody more than me can be happy of this. However, I also think that we should, as an ecosystem, we should not neglect humanities. The teaching of history, for example, that is threatened in many places, it's crucial. Why I'm saying this? Because as AI becomes much more difficult to detect and therefore potentially more persuasive, is the critical thinking that it's what can save us. And that does not come only from STEM. Of course, you need to know statistics, etc., because then you will have to take decisions on your vaccinations and stuff. But also the critical thinking stemming from humanities is crucial. So my dream is to see massive investments in publicly funded schools, restoring a curriculum that inspires critical thinking.
Andrea, thank you so much for joining, and I take it this humanity factor from you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
From Moldova to Poland and the Czech Republic, Central Europe was the target of an unprecedented flood of disinformation this year. In our report tonight, we take a look back at some of Russia's most brazen influence operations in 2025.
Opening the review is the Russian disinformation surrounding the incursion of up to 23 Russian drones into Polish territory on September 9th. In this context, Russian disinformation was spread in the United Nations by Vasily Nebenzia, Russia's ambassador to the UN and the Kremlin's mouthpiece.
The maximum range of the drones used in this strike did not exceed 700 kilometers, which makes it physically impossible for them to reach Polish territory.
Anybody who says that this was Ukrainian provocation is either the author or a willing accomplice of Russian propaganda. We are sure that these were Russian drones and that this was a Russian operation.
The incursion was a prelude to a large-scale campaign in air traffic disruption around airports in Denmark and Germany, but also the military base of Öland in Norway. Speaking of disruptions, Russia was found to have paid a network of individuals for posting pro-Russian propaganda and fabricated stories in the run-up to Moldova's parliamentary elections this September. The aim was to discredit the country's pro-EU governing party. But there was more. To mobilize as many operatives as possible, Russia compensated the network members for locating supporters of Moldova's pro-Russia opposition and secretly recording them. The hired individuals asked the supporters questions that gave the impression of a poll. When put together, these recordings could create a false image of higher-than-average popularity of the pro-Russian opposition. This was intended to be used to undermine the official election outcome if the pro-EU ruling coalition won, which is what happened. Russia also attempted to influence the Czech parliamentary election in October.
The intelligence services actually uncovered a sophisticated network of operations in Czechia run from Russia on TikTok, not dissimilar to things that we've seen, for example, in Romania.
The goal of these efforts was to influence the ballots so that
Pro-Russian, openly pro-Russian candidates, such as the Communist Party, have a higher chance of winning.
But Russia has also been using social media and messaging apps to recruit low-level agents. Their tasks involve taking photos of transport hubs, marking military convoys, and painting graffiti. If the person proves efficient, they can be assigned increasingly complex missions. The recruitment process often begins on Russia's most popular messaging app, Telegram. Anonymous channels post vague job offers, promising quick cash for delivery work or easy tasks. In Poland, similar job offers have been published on Telegram channels managed by the Bomba Poland media network. The tasks included arson attacks on infrastructure, government buildings, police stations, and courts. Cash rewards varied from several hundred to several $1,000s and were conditional on sending a video recording of the task's completion. Candidates received detailed instructions on how to prepare a flammable mixture, select a target, document the operation, and avoid detection. But on their turf, German intelligence agencies decided to fight back by planting a number of AI-generated user accounts across Russia-friendly Telegram channels to lock recruiters in endless competence assessments.
New technologies are developing fast, much faster than most of us can follow. Deepfakes, the darknet, automated networks that grow and evolve with minimal human control. The future is already here. So what can we expect in 2026? Let's ask our next guest.
Filip Głowacz, FIMI OSINT expert at NASK, former military intelligence. He's a specialist with over 13 years experience in foreign information manipulation and interference, focused on Russian and Belarusian information operations and disinformation. As a former military intelligence practitioner, he's had hands-on exposure to information operations. He's experienced in cross-platform investigations, large-scale threat monitoring, and tracking FIMI campaigns targeting Poland and the wider region.
Filip, welcome and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, hi, and thank you for your invitation.
We are finishing the year full of influence operations and disinformation, and many reports have been saying already at the beginning of the year that Poland is the biggest target for disinformation campaigns of Russia, for example. What were the main events around which disinformation occurred?
Well, definitely it was the presidential elections in Poland, it was the drone attack, and the recent train railway sabotage. The last two are a perfect example of a hybrid threat. It's not only disinformation, something that happens online, but it's like with this kind of kinetic touch, something that happens in real life, and they're combined together.
And how different those influence operations are?
Influence operations become more, like I mentioned, hybrid. We have a lot of cyber attacks in Poland that are backed up with disinformation, and a lot of means changed in how Russia operates because of how AI is developed and how operating in social media gets cheaper and cheaper. We are being flooded with disinformation in our lives, on a daily basis.
So what are the new tactics, techniques, and procedures that you're seeing this year?
I think, well, maybe they're not new, but they are more. They are used more often. It's like the deep fakes, because it's nothing new. Actually, the deep fakes were around for a lot of time, but the thing is that they are thanks to the development of AI, large language models. Making a deep fake becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, so they are more often used in disinformation. But to be honest, they're not that big part of disinformation as people might think, because the funny part is that, cheap fakes are enough. Cheap fakes are enough for people, for society to believe. If a cheap fake targets a person and it's coherent with their beliefs, it is enough for him to catch the content from the cheap fake and spread it out. I don't know. I think it's psychology. I think people are more keen to agree with stuff that is consistent with their own beliefs. So if even a cheap fake is made and it's like consistent with someone's beliefs, he's more keen to consider it true.
And what are specific examples of either deepfakes or other TTPs that were used and gained a lot of traction in Poland?
In Poland, actually, we don't get this much deep fakes, and there were deep fakes around the drone attack, and but we don't get that much deep fakes in Poland because the thing is, in Poland we have this already our society is pretty much divided, and they're just influencing the division between political groups, between the help for Ukraine, those for against the help, and those wanting to help the Ukraine. And the thing is that they don't need this much disinformation as they like. They can manipulate the facts. They don't need deep fakes and stuff like that. They need it in some news, new narratives going on, like let's say like they were with drones, the railways. But still, as we see in a new tactic is it's this portal combat operation. It's not a new operation, but it's a set of more than 100 networks in different languages and in Poland. And the thing is that this website are not maybe aimed at a Polish citizen, but they are aimed to train large language models. So the thing is, what happens in Poland? In Poland, a lot of people now use the large language models to reach out for the information, to verify information. And the thing is that the AI takes the information from Russian propaganda sites because of the portal combat operation, because they are indexed a lot in many languages and stuff like that. So this is how they operate. This is something new.
So they are influencing for example, ChatGPT, right? The most common one.
Yes, exactly. And if you ask ChatGPT about some news, it will take as a source the Russian propaganda sites.
So what are the narratives that were mostly visible this year?
They were pretty much the same, that Poland is a puppet of either the US or EU, as we are the warmonger dragging Europe into war with Russia. Ukrainians are a threat. That's, I think, it's the biggest one, and all these little sub narratives around Ukraine, that we will be betrayed by Ukraine, and that Ukrainian citizens are a threat, and that Ukraine will drag us into war. Well, the EU and the Green Deal will destroy Polish economy and identity, and Poland as a state that is in chaos, it's a falling, and it's deeply divided.
So the biggest wish for next year, just one.
To people be more aware, definitely is the biggest wish. To be more, to reach out for education in terms of disinformation.
Thank you so much, and I hope that's going to happen in 2026.
Yes, I hope as well. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. 2025 showed us how fast the landscape can change. The new year is going to move even faster. It will bring new systems, new risks, and new opportunities. So as we move into 2026, remember to keep calm and think deeply.